For decades, the 4% rule has been the golden rule of retirement planning. Take out 4% each year and you should be okay, right? Well, the truth is that rule was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Interest rates, inflation, longevity, everything has changed. And if you're still following the 4% rule, you might be watering a tree that can't survive a new climate. Let's talk about it.
%50 or more for some people decline. So what if you retired that year, 2000, started taking your 4% on $1 million?
Like that's actual relief.
Right.
Whereas a lot of other times we see people like trying to solve for this and then still not be sure.
So we first went, we diagnosed and got the shortfall. We found out what their income shortfall was that we've already talked about.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Legacy Life Podcast. We are back here again today on another beautiful morning.
Mm-hmm.
So last week, we talked about how instead of treating your retirement problem, quote-unquote problem, they just say you have a problem and here's how you're going to fix it, right? Diagnose it first. What is the math?
Mm-hmm.
Not this idea of like, how do you feel today? Or do you feel conservative today?
Mm-hmm.
You feel aggressive? Like, how are you feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, conservative? All right, we're going to invest all your money like that then,
Mm-hmm.
right? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? It's like, what do you need?
Right.
Right? What is your situation? What do you need? Like, what's your lifestyle goal? All these different things, right?
Right.
And so what is the actual math? What is your shortfall, your income shortfall? And we talked about how your income shortfall
Mm-hmm.
is basically what you've planned for already. So Social Security, a pension maybe, something along these lines. Maybe you already have some investments that are paying you, right?
Right.
And then what's your lifestyle goal? So if what you've planned for is $50,000 and your lifestyle goal is $100,000, okay, so every year, adjusted for inflation, you have a $50,000 plus shortfall.
Right.
For income, right? Over retirement, which on average, 20 to 30 years. Okay, we've got a shortfall. Now we can start looking at how are we going to fix this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about how it's okay to, be a little bit more conservative or aggressive, but don't just pick a box and then let someone just figure it out for you.
Without knowing the math.
No,
right.
we're gonna let's build the plan together and do the math and figure out what could you do to invest your money.
Yep.
So that you don't have to make a return to have the income you need on retirement. Now you will, and you can.
Yeah.
But if you could solve for zero,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about the power of zero,
Mm-hmm.
then that's beautiful because everything else is gravy on top, and you can live comfortably and sleep at night knowing like, okay, if I make no money today,
Right.
on my investment, I'm okay.
Right.
Right? If I do, nice.
Right.
That's sweet.
Hope for growth.
Hope for growth.
Plan for income.
Plan for income.
Yep.
Right? So we're going to dive a little bit more into this 4% rule.
Yeah, get specifically targeting that.
Get very specific, right?
Yeah.
So
that 4% rule, I think mid-90s or early 90s, actually, there was a study done, looked at like 30-year retirement periods, and it assumed and that's the key word there, it assumed
yes,
in this study, steady bond yields, mild inflation, 60-40 stock to bond portfolio, very typical, the 60-40 strategy.
Yep.
You'll even hear people say, so I'm coming to retirement, so I should probably do that 60-40, right? Something like that.
Right.
It'll just come out.
Right.
Right. And in that world, back at that time, withdrawing the 4% probably worked okay. I mean, you can look at studies, 1990 to 2000, say, that decade. People were doing the 4% rule. And making these assumptions, they did okay, all right? But I think it's fair to say that's not 1994 anymore.
Yep.
Okay?
Actually, it isn't. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just the last 3 years, what has inflation done?
It
turns out it's 2025. Wow, how did that happen? Yeah. Yeah. No truer words were spoken on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's not 1994 anymore.
If
Thank
you
you,
take
Ryan.
anything from this podcast,
Yeah. It's not 1994. Thank you so much. It was so helpful. Yeah. So much value. All right.
Yep.
So, no, but inflation the last 3 years, what has it done, right? skyrocket. It was, I think it topped 18%, which is the highest spike in 40 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So longevity, we talk about that a lot. Average American's retiring right now at 63, okay, and lives to their mid 80s. If you make it to the age of 65, we talk about this a lot. You have like a 50% chance as a man living to 86 or beyond. Beyond 85, and as a female beyond 86. Right, 1 in 7 will live, I think, past age 90. Right, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's 22 plus years of withdrawals from retirement accounts.
Yep.
And then of course you have to factor in the volatility. If you look at like COVID in 2022 as two most recent examples. I mean, we can go back to 2018 and back farther, but 2022, you see these almost back-to-back drawdowns because of COVID, and then 2022 in the stock and bond markets. And that's something, of course, this original model from 1994, the world that we just stated we're not in anymore,
right,
could never predict,
right?
Because how can you?
Yeah,
right?
And this the 4% rule, like this kind of planning, it assumes perfect sequence of returns risks.
Right, it does.
Yeah,
and but with the sequence of returns, if the bad years come early, that's when people can really be in trouble. And to give you an example, like I just said, the 90s, 4% rule, people probably did okay. But what if you're the guy who retired in the year 2000?
Yeah.
Okay. .com bubble, if you think back. And then 9/11, right? Which, who could predict that?
Right.
So 2000, 2001, 2002 were 3 straight minus years in the market. Like 50% or more for some people decline. So what if you retired that year, 2000, started taking your 4% on $1 million? Let's just say $1 million, 4% is 40 grand of income. 3 years later, you've lost half of it, but you've been taking out that 40 grand a year too, which over 3 years is $120,000, right?
Yeah.
And to the tune of 3 years of straight losses. Your portfolio is now worth less than $500,000.
Right.
How's that going to work now?
Right.
Right. Because let's say it was worth $500,000 after that time. Well, 4% of that's 20,000. Do you adjust your income in half? Do you still live on 40,000 a year, which is more? There's now 8%. Right? You can see the potential issues there.
Exactly.
And so if people say, well, that won't happen to me. Well, are you the 1990 person or the year 2000 person?
Right.
What's the answer? I don't know.
We don't know. That's the thing.
How can you know?
So can you plan to weather these storms?
Yeah, exactly. The old rule doesn't just underestimate like inflation and longevity. It completely ignores the timing of the harvest, that can happen. Now you hope that, something like the 2000, 2001 doesn't happen, but it's just something you can't predict. So that's why you have to kind of rethink, is that the strategy you want to take on? Retirement. So, of course, I think, was there another stat here too that I missed? No, I not yet. Okay. So, of course, in our framework, we do think a little differently. The retirement shouldn't just depend on luck or sequence. We really want it should depend on the yield, and not necessarily the liquidation.
Yep.
I couldn't think of another Y, so I just use an L.
Right.
Yield liquidation. Anyway. Yeah. So. Like we were talking about last week, in your portfolio in an orchard, if you have to sell branches every year just to eat, eventually the tree's gone.
Yep.
And that's what the 4% rule does. It chips away at it. It tells you how much wood that you can safely chop down each year. But there are actually some studies out there, which we'll talk about in a minute, that kind of question this exact principle of this 4%. So we want to help people shift from a withdraw mindset to a harvest mindset. Okay. Big difference.
Yeah.
You're no longer asking how long until I run out, but it's how much fruit can my orchard naturally produce each year without having to liquidate anything.
Yeah.
Each season, and can it be more robust each season as I keep moving forward?
Yeah.
Right. So, Um, so the key is not drawing down the principal. Again, it's growing the income yield. So when we look at this study, Morningstar in 2024, so this is very recent, and I even think Harvard did one of these even a few more years back in the teens somewhere, 2015, somewhere around there. I could be wrong on that. But Morningstar says that the new safe withdrawal rate, however they're coming up with it, is now 3.3. Okay. Harvard did a study and it was like 2.6.
Yeah.
Okay. Which then what's that going to do? It's going to cause people to think, oh, well, if 2.6 is the new number, 3.3 is the new number, they're going to go to their amount they've saved, do the math, and think, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm ever going to save enough.
Yeah.
That happens a lot because this strategy forces you to say, oh, I saved $1 million. Oh, 2.6. Oh, 3.3. Oh, 33,000. I need 50.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to have to withdraw more, right? Which means my returns are going to have to be higher. So you can see the psychology, how that can really begin to make people think that they're not going to make it.
Exactly. Yep.
So that means that a retiree with $1 million can safely withdraw $33,000 a year, not $40,000, right? 3.3%. And that's a $7,000 per year gap in that rule. And over 25 years, it's $175,000.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's if everything goes well.
Right. And we don't know if it will or not.
Yep. So imagine now on top of this, you were talking about longevity earlier, bringing up the multiplier of all the other risks. So let's bring in inflation, which because of longevity gets multiplied, right? No pun intended.
Yep.
Well, no, it was. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if inflation stays above 3% and healthcare stays at around 6%, because healthcare increase in costs always outpaces inflation. It just has historically for quite a while.
Yep.
So we maybe we can safely make that assumption that's not going to change anytime soon. You can see how quickly that this 3.3% rule is going to break down.
Yep.
Right. So anything you want to say to that?
No, I would just completely agree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, a couple this year met with, they had saved like 1.2 million in retirement accounts. They had been told before they met us, follow that 4% rule. They didn't have the Morningstar reports. It was just still 4%. But their plan had no income yield. And so they were literally just selling shares to survive. That's all they had begun doing, is just selling and spending down.
Yeah.
And so when we restructured their assets, we first we diagnosed and got the shortfall. We found out what their income shortfall was that we've already talked about. And we moved their assets into some dividend-paying equities. And the harvest yield jumped from 2.5 to 5%. First year.
Yeah.
And they went from selling branches to just living on the fruit of the dividend without having to sell anything.
Yep.
And were elated because suddenly their rate of return they had to get dropped to zero. And that's...
They had surplus.
Yep. And you could actually visibly see the change of their disposition.
Right.
Yeah. They're like, oh, wow, you've given us a lot of hope. We didn't even think this would even be possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the crazy part is even like that's actual relief.
Right.
Whereas a lot of other times we see people like trying to solve for this and then still not be sure. They still don't know, right? Because there's so much assumption involved.
Yeah.
Whereas we're just like, nope, this is the math.
Yeah.
This was your shortfall. This is how we're going to solve for it. You need 0% return to solve for it. You're good. Oh, yeah. And also there's like surplus without.
Right. And we should do an episode on surplus income.
Yeah.
We should do that to show because yeah.
Right. Because what can you do with that surplus?
Yes.
You can buy yourself more income.
Turns out. There's a lot of great things that can happen.
Yep.
It just, when you see the client's world open up to like all these possibilities they never thought they could even entertain.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah. So, the 4% rule might have worked in yesterday's world. I mean, we know that was a long time ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But in today's climate, we need something better. And in fact, what we're describing here as better isn't like some new flashy thing. This has been time tested.
Exactly.
You know, people, there's companies that have been paying dividends since the 1800s and have still continued to do so. So we're not like reinventing the wheel. This is tried and true strategies that have really helped a lot of retirees for over a century.
Yep. It just doesn't fit in the traditional framework. Even though it is so old, it's kind of is traditional.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Well, one thing that did happen, and I'll just kind of throw this in, is like before 1978, I believe it was, the retirement planning was much different in our country.
Yeah.
In 1978, I forget the name of the act right now. I'm just having a moment here. Sorry, this must be age or something.
Yeah, it's okay.
Where the responsibility shifted for retirement planning from the employer to the employee. And that's where, during that time, there's a lot more pensions and defined contribution plans, and not, a lot more pension plans, and not like, it was the introduction of the 401k, basically.
Yeah.
And so once the 401k came out, during that time, taxes were very high in the 70s. Like the top tax rate was like, I believe, like over 70%. Like it was,
whoa.
Okay. And so having a defined plan where you could put money in and defer taxes sounded like a great idea because tax rates were so high, right? So for the C-suite, the 401k was really created originally for the C-suite of companies.
Yeah.
High wage earners would have high contribution limits, but then they opened it up to just the general public.
Yeah.
And we were sold a bill of goods that, well, your tax rates are going to be out of sight when you go into retirement, so you got to defer this money.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is so you saw 401k planning go this way and pensions begin to go this way.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
see way less and less pensions.
Right. And now the money that you're putting in your 401ks, whose responsibility was to invest it? The employee.
Yep.
Right. And you had limited choices of what you could choose.
Exactly.
Right. And so, I mean, you ask a room of 100 people, how many of you have 401ks? And a lot of people raise their hand. And how many of you have gotten a phone call in the last 6 months from the 401k administrator helping you plan and helping you sort through the choices you have?
Mm-hmm.
No hands will go up.
Yep.
Okay. It's on you. Okay. No one's talking to you about it. You're just making your best. Conservative, moderate, aggressive choices.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Here's your average rates of return. They'll just put some numbers on there. You're like, 15.2, that's a good one.
Yep.
You just put your money in, right? No one has any idea what they're investing in, right? So when that happened, that's where the mindset really shifted. It's now on me. It's complex. I don't even know what I'm choosing. I hope it does well. I know my company's matching, 3%, 4%, 6%, whatever it is, and you hope to grow some money.
Yeah.
Right? Very expensive plans, though. Not a lot of good quality. Where was I going with that? But I think that example I wanted to share.
Yeah, we were talking. I actually don't remember what we were talking about, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was something about retirement.
Yeah. So in 1978, this really transitional moment in history happened.
Let's just go back to the beginning and see where we ended up.
Yeah. No, but basically it was, I mean, I know I wanted to share it because that's really where the responsibility shifted.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this mindset came for tax planning, and tax rates are going to be really high, so I have to do it this way. But tax rates eventually came down, and these qualified accounts began to balloon, and people ended up with, another tax time bomb just awaiting them in retirement. I hear it all the time. Clients will say, man, I think we put too much money in qualified accounts over the years. Well, that's what you were taught to do.
Exactly.
Don't blame yourself. Don't feel guilty. It's what you were taught.
Yep.
There was a really cool tie-in with that, and I don't remember what it was.
I was talking about traditional invest, how I think I remember now. I
Uh-huh.
talked about how dividends are kind of traditional because they're so old.
Yeah.
But it's not in the traditional framework.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because the traditional framework, that's right, because in 78 things shifted. So that traditional framework and the way maybe people would have thought about dividends back then was kind of lost. Not on everybody.
Sure.
But going forward on a lot. And, not in these more modern times, it's not necessarily part of the culture of retirement planning. And so people will be like, well, why aren't other people talking about this? And the truth is they used to.
And it's because it's so simple too.
Yeah.
Like that's something we get all the time is that it seems too easy.
Right. It is simple. And when people say, why aren't others talking about this? The answer is, well, who's been talking to you about your 401k investing at all? Nobody. So
Right.
how would you have ever learned about this if you hadn't gotten educated on it yourself?
And you probably
Yeah.
talk to some people who start going into the weeds about stuff and you have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to be knowledgeable, but it's
Mhm.
also important to just realize like a lot of it's just a whole bunch of logical, complicated BS that
Yeah.
doesn't need to take place.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, again, near and dear to our heart. So, if today's episode hit home in any way, shape, or form, or was helpful, can you drop us a note and let us know? If there's any other topics you want us to cover, can you please let us know that as well? And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. Thank you for everyone that has been subscribing. We're glad that you're joining us. We have new people joining every week. We love it. If you want to go in our show notes, you can get a link to our calendar and have a free consultation, talk about your situation. We'd love to meet you, answer your questions, educate you on things. Before we go here, we just want to stress that when it comes to your retirement plan, whoever you're working with, just make sure that you're discovering that income shortfall. Have them be building plans with you and not just for you. Be in a situation like Caleb was talking about where you can become educated and learn and understand how your retirement's going to work, how it's going to function, and put you in the driver's seat. Okay? So thanks, and we'll catch you next time.